You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a charm, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag
For what?
with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club,
Why?
buy some bottles, impress them girls.
what?
It's more than life.
Oh, fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And I'm Ethan, and we're back with a main course, and we're here to talk about some football, and we're talking about some Saints football, and we're talking about some of the playoffs, and how, of course, none of the divisional round and none of the championship games. Of course, none of that played out how I wanted it to either. So let's just get right into some of that right now. And so, can I get a menu? And well, I've been off a little bit for a while, a little extended break, you could say. I had a little bit of a cold, so that wouldn't have sounded too good on these podcasts over the last week or so. And I think if any of you follow the news or the weather, know that the South, down south here lately has been dealing with some ice storms here for a while. So I've been dealing with some of that as well. But anyways, I just wanted to first, before I get into some of the Sean Payton news and then Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis firing all of our coordinators and assistant coaches. Let's recap some of the playoffs and how some of those games have been playing out recently. And in the divisional round, I actually like some of those teams that were in those games, and I was hoping the Jaguars and the New York Giants would come through in those games, and both of those teams they put up kind of some fight. That they had some fight in them a little bit. I guess the Jaguars put up a pretty good fight, if I remember against the Kansas City Chiefs. They actually came pretty close to beating the Kansas City Chiefs. They shook up Mahomes. That's the whole reason. There's the whole ankle gate, whole story behind Patrick Mahomes' ankle being hurt. They honestly, if I think if Trevor Lawrence would have played better, they probably should have beaten the Chiefs, honestly, in the divisional round, because their defense played more than good enough to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And Trevor Lawrence, he seems like he's a good young quarterback, a quarterback of the future, young prospect that will probably be in watching head-to-head matchups between Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes here in the future for a long time to come. But he just didn't play good enough for them to move on in that game. And then I guess I said that the New York Giants played a good game, but actually they didn't. That was, I guess, 2 weeks going on 3 weeks ago, they actually got beat down by the Philadelphia Eagles. But in the divisional round, those are the two teams that I actually wanted to see win, but they just got absolutely blasted by the Philadelphia Eagles, who actually do look like the team to beat. And then on to the championship games. Of course, once again, I wanted, in the first game, I wanted the 49ers to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, because I think it just kind of carries over more to social media than anything. I can't stand Philadelphia Eagle fans. I think that kind of harps back to the whole Saints Eagles trade, the first round picks, the second round picks, the CD Deuce trade, the Saints getting absolutely fleeced I think it's been a long time since the Saints have actually had a trade where I've actually felt like they won the trade, and you can't there can't be a it seems like there can't be a social media post where there aren't Eagles fans jumping on there and having their input about how they're glad that the Saints are a bad team, so the Saints draft pick is lower, and so the draft pick is higher for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I've just been sick of that all of last year of the 2022-2023 season. So I really wanted to see the 49ers beat the Eagles and knock them out of the playoffs. That really would have been satisfying. Really, one of the most satisfying things of the 2022 season was the Saints beating the Eagles in the regular season. And I had said earlier in that season that I really wish the Philadelphia Eagles would have been undefeated by the time the Saints beat them, so the Saints could have beat their undefeated streak. But sadly, that didn't happen. But yeah, I wanted the 49ers to beat them. But yeah, that didn't play out at all either. That was just a sad sap of a game. Honestly, like within the first couple drives, Brock Purdy gets his AC joint or UCL tendon torn. I guess that's a Tommy John surgery for your baseball players, MLB player fans out there. Yeah, the game just fell apart from there. And then you got your other uh, star players like no Nick Bosa got banged up, and yeah, that was just not an enjoyable. That was like one of the worst championship games I could ever remember watching. That was just a complete mollywhopping by the Philadelphia Eagles on the 49ers. And that was just so odd watching a team that was so dominant all year just getting embarrassed after how great they had been in the regular season. But yeah, regular season is not the postseason. And I think, he got hurt, and he finally showed kind of that he was Mr. Irrelevant with, he got hurt, but I don't think it would have mattered anyways because the Philadelphia Eagles, it's wild that they had pretty much like 20 more sacks than anyone else in the league. They had like 72 sacks going into that game, and then at the end of the game they had like 78 sacks. That's wild because the Saints they had like 50 sacks. The Saints had were top 10 in sacks in the league, so they had like 20 more sacks than New Orleans, which is just wild. They had like three, I think they have three players on their team that were in double digits. The Saints had zero this year. That was just crazy how dominant the Philadelphia Eagles looked in that game. And Jalen Hurts only threw for like 155 yards, and they still just beat them down. Boston Scott, who was a former Saint, drafted like in the sixth or seventh round, he got in on the game with a touchdown. The Philadelphia Eagles, they just completely dominated the 49ers. But yeah, I once again, none of the playoff games or playoff teams that I wanted to win, none of that went any way that I wanted. So yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles just completely dominated the 49ers. And then in the other game against the Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs, that was a much more enjoyable game, much more competitive game. Went right down to the wire. I think there's a lot of more controversy about that game from some bad calls. Left people saying that it was rigged after the game. I think the clock stoppage moment in the game where I guess the clock wasn't running during a play and they had to replay it down after it looked like the Bengals had already got the Kansas City Chiefs to fourth down, and then they had to get them to fourth down again, and they had sacked the Patrick Mahomes on the play, and then right after they sacked him, it looks like, oh, there's pass interference on Eli Apple, and that caused a bunch of controversy. And then you start seeing people online saying like, oh, that's the worst call since the Nola no call, but really, there's no way that there's no comparison to that play compared to the no call. And when it came down to it, that was a non-factor of a call really, because the Kansas City Chiefs ended up punting on that drive anyway. So that play and that call and the flag on Eli Apple was irrelevant anyways because they didn't get any points anyways. That there was only like four more plays and they punted anyway, so that was irrelevant. But it's just and really the worst part of that is just how the game ended with the Osai uh, roughing unnecessary roughness out of bounds that pretty much ended the play on a penalty. And yeah, I wanted the Bengals and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Von Bell and Trey Hendrickson. And even though Eli Apple talks trash about the new city of New Orleans, I mean he was on the Saints NFC team and he was there in 2019. I don't think he played against in the playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings. I think he was hurt then, but he was a Saint. He was a contributor during some of those winning games. So I mean, they were the Cincinnati Saints, you know. So I was pulling for them, but like I said, once again, none of the teams I wanted to win. But you know, after that game and after the game in Philadelphia, that left a lot of fans saying that you know the NFL is rigged and the referees need to be investigated and this that and the other. But I mean, if the NFL isn't going to be investigated after the no call, it sure as hell isn't going to be investigated after those games. Nothing that controversial happened in those games. So, but that's my recap of those playoff games, and maybe in a podcast down the road, I'll maybe make my predictions of the Super Bowl or really some more of my thoughts on those. But I really have no interest in the Super Bowl. I'm not very excited about either team that's in those because I just detest both fan bases of the Philadelphia Eagle and the Kansas City Chiefs. But now on to the next subject here is the finally the day had come where Sean Payton finally traded to the Denver Broncos. It finally happened, even after now. I could not stand some of these reports by some of these um, I guess you call these insiders, and the main one I'm talking about is Ian Rappaport. Ian Rappaport, uh, he was the biggest flip flopper here when trying to report whether Sean Payton was gonna stay at Fox or whether he was still on the hunt to find a team. He was just the biggest flip flopper during this time, and that drove me crazy. And I wish I wish I would have done a podcast in between that time so I could have had on receipt that I didn't believe his bull crap during that time because he came out with a report that after Frank Wright was hired by the Panthers that like right after Frank Wright uh, was hired by the Panthers that okay now there wasn't a spot for Sean Payton so that it was like a 7 out of 10 chance that Sean Payton was going back to Fox. And when that happened, I was just thinking to myself, like, okay, well, there's still like 4 or 5 other head coaching spots. And the only one that was filled was by the Carolina Panthers. And really, the likelihood that he was going to be hired by the Carolina Panthers was probably slim to none anyway. So why, just because one out of all the openings has been filled, why does that just completely slam the door that Sean Payton is going to become a head coach again? That just didn't make any sense to me. I just called complete bullshit on that when that was happening. So I really wish I'd have done a podcast so I could have had that out there, and that just drove me nuts. And then shortly after he had said that, the news broke that the Arizona Cardinals were very interested with him, and that he had like spent like all day riding around with the Arizona Cardinals owner, that that he was and that it was possible that they may get like the third round pick with him. And then Ian Rappaport comes back on and basically completely backtracked on what he was saying on all of that. And I just can't stand it when these media reporters and insiders just completely flip flop. And then that kind of dissipated a little bit that on all of that. And then that kind of dissipated. And then Ian Rappaport comes back again and said, "Well, it looks kind of like all the head coaching spots are kind of filled, and it looks like D'Amico Ryans is probably going to get hired hired by the Houston Texans, so that's kind of filling that spot." And then it looks like I said once again, 7 out of 10 chance that Sean Payton is probably going to just go back to Fox, and then boom, Sean Payton is traded to the Denver Broncos for the 2023 first round pick of the Denver Broncos, which is the 29th pick in the first round this year, and then a 2024 second round, and then the Saints have to give back the 2020 their 2024 third round pick. And it's just like, man, just shut up, dude. Like no spots have even been like filled yet. Like, and then shortly after that, D'Amico Ryan did end up getting hired by the Texans. So it's like, man, these insiders just drive me nuts. Like I wish, kind of like referees when they make bad uh, calls and stuff. Like these insiders need to have like some repercussion or something for making like bad calls or like fake news almost. Like you're like so wrong, and that kind of stuff just drives me nuts. But anyways, enough of that stooge, Ian Rappaport. I want to get a little bit into like how I feel about the trade and like the compensation for Sean Payton. One, I'm glad that the trade is finally done with. I'm glad that's over with. I'm glad that the Saints did get in traded this year. I was at times when I kept hearing people saying like, "Oh, he's going to go back to Fox," like that was scaring me there for a little while because I was like, "Man, that really sucked if they didn't get anything for him this year." So I'm really glad that they did get something for him this year. The fact that they didn't get as much as I thought they were going to get is a little bit of a bummer because I was really getting excited there for a little while when I thought the Arizona Cardinals were their trade partner because I was thinking, oh man, if they could get like maybe the Arizona Cardinals second round pick this year and maybe their first round pick next year, or somehow, some way they could actually get Arizona's Cardinals just their third round pick this year and like nothing else, hell, I would just take that. That would have been amazing. But, I think you got to kind of take into account like one of the greatest things about trading him to the Broncos is that he's in the AFC. So that's like amazing that you only have to play him like once every 4 years, if anything. So that's a plus. But the main thing I don't like about this trade is that you actually have to give them back a third round pick. I think that's the thing that really bothers me the most about this trade is that you had to give them anything. Like that's the thing that kind of sticks in my craw a little bit is that you had to give them anything. But the fact that now that you have a first round pick in this draft, which you didn't have before, that's nice. And that you have a second round pick in next year's draft, which you didn't have before, is really nice. So I guess I'm good with it, but the fact that you had to give them anything is still a little annoying. But I think it's growing on me. It's growing on me, and it makes this off season that's coming up more fun. It makes the fact that you can do mock drafts. It's going to make draft season. It's going to make combine season more fun, but it doesn't set up the ability to be able to draft a quarterback or anything like that really possible. But eh, you know, if nothing else, I'm just glad that it's over with. But now on to, I guess, just all the. This seems like, I don't know, is Mickey Loomis and Dennis Allen. They seem like they're kind of cleaning house on all their assistant coaches and things like that. Assistant coaches, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators, quarterback coaches, whether they're going to other teams and stuff. Let's see. There's Chris Richard. He went. He was interviewed by Atlanta, and he went there. Uh, so I see. Ronald Curry is interviewing for the offensive coordinator job for the Buccaneers. They just straight up released Chris Richard, which I thought was kind of surprising, even though I think there was rumors that he was maybe interviewing with Carolina to be their defensive coordinator. And so that's like three different coordinators gone, but now they're so those that's three different guys. But uh, give some of my thoughts on that. Is it seems like a lot of people were really like bummed out about Chris Richard leaving, and I and really think that he was like a super amazing coach or something. And I don't know. I guess I have a little bit of a different point of view on that, and I, I think he was maybe really good in the beginning, but I think he kind of underachieved as a coach, as the D line coach, or I think that's what he was when he originally got here. He was like the D line coach, defensive end, defensive tackle, D line coach, But then he was, I guess, what, like the weird title, an assistant defensive coordinator. I don't even know. It's a weird title, but like the last couple of years, I feel like as his title, Ryan Nilsson is who I'm meant to talk about. Ryan Nilsson uh, is I feel he's kind of underachieved. Like, and what I mean underachieved, he's underachieved in like the development of like players like Marcus Davenport. He never like fully reached his potential, and I guess you can kind of place blame on Davenport because he's never really been fully healthy. But he was relatively healthy this year, and he had his worst season, and that was in his contract season. And you would think that if Ryan Nilsson was going to get the most out of a player, and it would have been in their contract year. And when he was finally healthy, he played in the majority of his games this year. And then same with like Payton Turner. And I think I have a little different opinion on Payton Turner, and he's kind of similar to Davenport with kind of not being healthy and stuff. And it's kind of odd to me that Payton Turner was healthy scratch a couple of games this season and towards the end. But I always thought when Payton Turner has been healthy, I thought he looked good. But once again, it's kind of on Ryan Nilsson to get the best out of these young defensive linemen. And then on top of that, like he hadn't had a lot to work with when it came to defensive tackles, but hadn't got really anything out of the defensive tackles that are here. The only one that's been like really decent, I guess, is Onyemata, David Onyemata, and he was what, just like like a fifth rounder, fifth round pick, and he's been with the team for several years now, but he hasn't. Can't place a lot of blame on him because it's not like he's had a first, second round defensive tackle the last couple of years. Really a lot of talent there to work with, but it seems like there's a lot of people out there acting like he's been like really great over the last couple of years. So a lot of people acting like Ryan Nilsson is a huge loss or something. but the one that surprised me more is really Chris Richard, because I thought the secondary, out of the entire defense, the secondary was really good this year, and I was surprised that they just straight up pretty much fired him. They said they parted ways, as I guess is the way they phrased it. Uh, Decided to go their own ways, you know. And I thought the secondary was really good. I mean, the only thing uh, that was really like different in that regard is that they lacked eh, overall in defense, and in the secondary is just there was no turnovers, you know. They didn't turn the ball over very well. They were like 31st in turnovers, so that they were like horrible in in, in that statistic. But let's see, passing statistics. They were passing yards. They were like third in passing yards. Passing yards a game, like seventh. Passing completions, third percentage. Like let's see, like opponents passing plays. 'Cause he was originally the defensive back for Seattle when he was the defensive back coach for the Legion of Boom. So opponents passing plays percentage was 54.2, 28%, and that was ranked number 8. Opponents completion percentage was 68.07, which was ranked number 3. Opponents yards pass yards was 8.5, and that was per pass was 5.8, which ranked number 3. Opponents passes opponents passing yards a game. Opponents passes per game is 31.5, which it ranked number 7. Opponent passing yards a game is 184.4, which ranked number 2. And then interception thrown percentage is 1.3%, which was 30th in the league. And then the sack percentage is 8.22, which ranked number 4. So I mean, they were really good in passing value, but so I was really surprised that they just straight up let Chris Richard go. But I don't know, maybe they did that because they wanted Dennis Allen to hire his own guys. But and now they're more of their rivals in their division, and the Buccaneers are trying to hire coach away another one of their assistants and quarterback coaches, Ronald Curry, to be their offensive coordinator in the Buccaneers. So, but to fill one of their spots is Joe Woods, and yeah, he has a similar career trajectory as Chris Richard, because similar to Chris Richard, he was like how Chris Richard was the defensive back coach for the Legion of Boom when they won the Super Bowl in 2013. Joe Woods was the defensive back coach for the Denver Broncos no-fly zone in 2015 and 2015 through 2016 when they won the Super Bowl. And then he was their defensive coordinator in 2017 through 2018. And then he was a defensive back coach for the 49ers and passing coordinator, which that's kind of weird that he was a passing coordinator and a defensive back coach. And then he was the defensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns through 2020 and 2022. And the Cleveland Browns, their defense was pretty middle of the pack last year. And so let's see. Their opponents' points per game was 22.4, which was 19th. Yards per game was 331.2, which ranked number 13th. And points per play was 36.36, which was ranked 20. Yards per play 5.4, which ranked number 18. Third down conversion 39.5, which ranked 18. Fourth down conversion 44.4, which ranked 9th, which that was decent. Their fourth down conversion was pretty much the only ranking that was decent. Red zone scoring, TDs 55.17, 16th, which ranked 16th, and opponent touchdowns a game 2.5, which was 18th. So they were just pretty much average on defense. And to compare that to the New Orleans Saints, Saints were really good on defense in comparison. Opponents per game, points per game, they were 20.3, which was 9th. Opponents' yards a game, 314.8, which was 5th. Opponents' points per play, 3.321, which is 9. Opponents' yards per play, 5, which is 5.0, which is 4. Third down conversion, which was like the only statistic they were bad at. They couldn't stop people on third down. If they could have improved on that, they'd have been like an elite defense. But they were horrible at stopping people. They could always get people with third down, but they couldn't stop them. They were 41.63% on third down conversion, which was 24th in the league. Fourth down conversion, they were 42.11%, which was 7th. Red zone scoring, touchdowns 50%. And that's was 5th in the league, and opponent touchdowns per game 2.1, and that was 8th. So I hope they don't sign that Joe Woods guy. He has a similar career arc as Chris Richard, but I think Chris Richard is definitely a better coach than him, even though they have a similar career arc with they both were defensive back coaches for iconic defenses in the Legion of Boom and the no-fly zone Denver Broncos team. But I don't when looking at what he did with the Cleveland Browns over the last 3 years, I'm not impressed. But with the Sean Payton signing being over and how the playoffs have played out, and with the looks like the shifting around of the Saints offensive, the coaching staff. Seems like there's a lot going on, but I think that's all I have for you. And with that, who dat? And can I get a check, please?